There's just a little bit of congestion in the downtown area at the inbound.
We will be up in just under 2 minutes.
Okay, great. Outbound, it's 18 on the Ryan. Inbound, it's 13 minutes, 95th to downtown with routine congestion starting around 18th. Outbound, it's back down to 11 minutes. The inbound Stevenson ramp to the inbound Ryan is a little bit tight. On the South Shore line today, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., shuttle buses replace trains between Dune Park and Carroll Avenue. I'm Jim Talamonte.
The Tom Hartman radio program provides all the intelligence, information, and insight you'll need to win the water cooler wars. Weekdays 11 to 2 right here on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter.
If you're looking to purchase a new home or refinance your existing home, then you need to call.
Okay, we actually have about a minute.
Okay,
I'd like to thank you for giving Team Hochberg the opportunity to help you refinance into lower rates, shorter terms, pay off debt, defer mortgage payments with a reverse mortgage, and secure financing on new home purchases last year. 2021 was a record year for Team Hochberg. My team closed almost 1,900 loans totaling close to $450 million, which helped listeners pay off debt and collectively save over $2 million a year. I'd like to say thank you again, because none of that would have been possible without loyal listeners like you calling and emailing Team Hochberg for a free consultation. Team Hochberg has helped thousands of radio listeners, but we can't help.
Okay, we've got about 20 seconds.
56David or visit 56david.com. That number again is
and just let me know as soon as you get everybody up.
284.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. How you doing today? Andre. Hey. Hey, King and Linda. Coming up, we got a lot to talk about today.
You can change the world. Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am leaving.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Wednesday, January 19th. Boy, this month is moving along. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. We've got a lot to talk about. The voting rights bill will be coming to the floor. How will people vote, up or down? We can't wait to talk about that. But then Senator Schumer says he might have a talking filibuster. It ought to be really interesting. That's the way they used to do it. And we've got, of course, legal Q&A with CK. We're going to be reviewing the Biden presidency. He has been in a year. He went in with more votes than any president in history, and now he's the second most unpopular president in history since they've been taking those polls. What has happened? What is going on? We got to talk about this on the Santita Jackson Show. And then, of course, so many of the different stories surrounding COVID and how you can protect yourself. We're going to continue this discussion on protocols, on masks, on why there are so many surges when so many people are getting vaccinated. Got to talk about that on the Santita Jackson Show. So let's get to it before we get to some good news, everybody. Chicago will have a high of 35 degrees, but the temperatures are going to plunge starting today, everybody. It's going to feel like it's below zero with the wind chill. So if you know anyone who doesn't have heat, if you see homeless people, try to direct them to a fire station, a library, a shelter where they can stay warm, everybody. In Minneapolis, St. Paul, it's already way below freezing. 6 degrees and partly cloudy today. The Dow closed down 543 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 386 points, and the S&P 500 closed down 85 points. In the NBA, the Timberwolves, in a nail-biter, they won over the Knicks, 112 to 110. And tonight, the Cavaliers will be playing the Bulls. Can't wait to see that. Go Bulls, go Bulls, go Bulls. Voting rights are the focus today on Capitol Hill as the Senate Democrats seek to advance legislation. They're trying to get voting rights through. Will they be able to do it? Will they go beyond Sinema and Manchin and go to Murkowski and go to Romney and go to Susan Collins? Will they do that? We'll see if they have a 100-state strategy or just a 50-state strategy, 50-vote strategy. Several Republican-controlled states have enacted new restrictions as we speak on such things as mail-in voting and early voting in the name of election security measures Democrats fear may affect turnout, voter suppression. That's what it's called, especially in battleground states. As we look at COVID-19, the number 2 man at the Vatican and the deputy are both positive for COVID. That's right. The Vatican Secretary of State and his deputy have both tested positive for the coronavirus, sending them our prayers, everybody. There's no immediate contact on their last on their last contact with the Pope, but we're hoping that they are getting better. The federal government launched its website to sign up for free COVID-19 tests. I hope you've done that. Tests.gov, COVID tests.gov, COVID tests with an S.gov. All you have to do is go on and register and they'll send it to you. This will allow people to order a maximum of 4 tests that will be shipped directly to our households within 7 to 12 days. The Biden administration will make 400 million N95 masks available to Americans for free starting next week, according to the White House. What do you think about the FTC? The Federal Trade Commission and the U.S. Justice Department announced yesterday they are reviewing guidelines for corporate mergers and will announce updated rules by the end of the year. The move is an effort to combat the concentration in a range of industries that can reduce competition and consumer choice. We have choices, everybody. Part of the fallout from the Australian Open. No one's really talking about it, but it sure did come out in Newsweek. Novak Djokovic, the number 1 male player in the world. Well, guess what? The whole saga with can he stay in Australia? Should he leave? Can he stay? Should he leave? Well, guess what? Refunds are outstripping ticket sales at the Australian Open. Isn't that interesting? He won't be playing, but now people don't want to go to the Open. Wow. And something very interesting, there's a new study in Nature Medicine that found that outer space travel causes the human body to destroy red blood cells at a faster rate than happens on Earth. Wow. Oh, is it safe out there for us, everybody? And in memoriam, today, Andre Leon Talley, one of the most influential persons in fashion. Indeed, he also was a groundbreaker in creating diversity in fashion. He was the right-hand man of Anna Wintour, who is of course, the chief at Vogue, but he was a creative director for years, and then he became the editor at large. And of course, he was 6'6", tall, majestic figure. What a man. He made his transition last night at the age of 73. No one can imagine Andre Leon Talley not being here, but he has made his transition and he also made his mark. God bless you, Andre Leon Talley. Let's get to some good news today. We need that. Pastor Vicki Johnson, how are you today?
I am great.
Oh,
how are you, Santita?
I am doing great. It's wonderful to hear your voice. Talk to me. Are you having in-person services right now?
Once the numbers spiked again, we canceled in-person worship.
Okay.
And we are streaming our worship on Facebook Live. Sadly, but we know that it's the best thing to do. We're still encouraging members of our congregation to get vaccinated who have not yet gotten vaccinated yet. We want people to be safe, even though we can distance ourselves and we wear masks. We just want to be safe.
Absolutely, because even when you get that, whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, you really have to follow the same rules. That's interesting. And I think that's really hard for people to put their arms around. You've never had a vaccine where the same rules apply to you that apply to those who've not been vaccinated, but that is how it's working. So don't blame people who haven't had the vaccine. Look at the virus and let us do all that we can to combat it. What's the good news today, Pastor Vicki Johnson? Of course, St. Thomas Lutheran Church. It's at 80th and Jeffrey, but what is your website?
That be,
Well, no. When you
Thomas, right? St. Thomas Lutheran Church, Chicago.
Okay. .org or .com?
Chicago.com.
Okay, very good. St. Thomas Lutheran Church, Chicago.com. Everybody, tune in, because they want to be safe, but it's going to be a powerful blessing for you. What's the good news today, Pastor?
Well, good morning, Santita, and good morning to all of your morning stars and friends. There is good news.
Yes.
Proverbs 18:24 says, "A man that hath friends must show himself friendly. There is a friend that sticks closer than a brother." Although some use this scripture, this poetic verse of scripture, to describe Jesus, in a greater sense, this refers to how to get friends and to the loyalty and faithfulness of friendship itself. I cannot testify to the number of friends that stick closer than a sibling. However, I do know the importance of being friendly, of having friends, and of being a friend. On the popular 90s television show Friends, and the now new black version of that show, NBC's Grand Crew, these groups of women and men party together, dine together, go to the movies together, and just hang out together in each other's apartments. These are sitcoms, so quite naturally they are happy and full of fun. But life is not just a sitcom. It is a mystery that leaves you wondering why. It is a drama with difficulties, dilemmas, disasters, dire straits, distress, divorces, and death. It is a sci-fi that has you trying to figure out the things that are beyond your understanding. It is a reality where everyone is always watching and you never seem to be able to get away. Having friends around through all of these times to laugh with, to cry with, to holler at, or just sit together in silence, this is a healing balm. Your friends help to keep you grounded when you get full of yourselves, as my grandmother would say, and push you to go higher when you are void of confidence. Today, thank God for your friends. Cherish them and do your part to stick close like a sibling or even close. If you will do this, and I hope you will, then to me, that's good news.
God bless you. Oh, boy. Friends, friends, friends. How many of us have them? That's right. You remember that from back in the 80s?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. But it's true. You got friends. Thank you, Bette Midler. You got to have friends. Oh, boy. Because sometimes they will stick closer to you than a sister or a brother. And then
Yes.
sometimes your sisters and brothers really know how to become your dear, dear friends. And so God bless you and God
Yes.
bless all of our friends. And please go to St. Thomas Lutheran Church, Chicago.com for the services. They're no longer in person. Well, not until these numbers go down. That's why we've got Dr. Deborah Holden, epidemiologist, associate dean of public health at the medical school at Michigan State University, with us every morning. And of course, Dr. Shanina Knighton, infection preventionist, registered nurse, scholar from the research scholar from Case Western Reserve University, helping us to wend our way through all of this information, because we have a lot coming at us, Pastor Johnson. And we don't have to explain, just like, how do I wear a mask? I didn't know that you couldn't wear a mask for 8 hours. I thought you could just wear it. I knew you couldn't wear it, forever and ever. And you see a lot of people with masks that are unclean, but these masks cost, as if people were not struggling before. And there's so many things that we need to be doing to mitigate this virus, as we're watching California surpass 7 million coronavirus cases. They've added 1 million in 1 week. I would just want to know how that happens. I mean, how is it that we're getting more shots than ever before, and yet we're getting more infected than ever before? And what about the boosters? I mean, and what makes you fully vaccinated? And we have a lot of questions today, and we're going to go back over what we need to be doing about these masks, because now 400 million of them are about to be available to Americans. Now we can go to covidtests.gov and order the COVID tests, which is a really, really good thing. You'll be able to get 4 per household. So, so there's a lot to talk about, Dr. Deborah Furholden. But I'm really disturbed by, and I'm sure, and you are too, by this spike in these coronavirus cases, as you just heard. Pastor Vicki Johnson, they had just very gradually gone back to in-person worship, and they had to make a decision, to say, okay, we're going to go back online because we're having a surge here in Illinois, and we're seeing surges all over the country, and we're seeing surges, quite frankly, all over the world. But wow, 7 million cases in California, 1 million in 1 week. What is going on? How can that happen?
Yeah, viruses mutate, and this one mutated and produced a highly infectious strain, and now it's spreading like wildfire. I keep reminding people, this is not our first rodeo with SARS, coronavirus. We had SARS before, this early SARS outbreak in early 2000s. Remember that?
Yeah.
Now, we were fortunate in that it didn't become necessarily pandemic level, because I think in the U.S. we had maybe around 30 cases, no reported deaths. And abroad we had about 8,000 cases total and just under 800 deaths. Watch that. That's a 10% death rate. 10% death rate.
Is that
Big
high?
difference between that. Yes.
Okay.
10% is. There is nothing I can think of that if I did it and 10% of the people who did it died, that I would do. Is it for you?
No, I mean, I just.
Crash rate for airplanes was 10%. You never fly. If it's 10% of the time you left the house in your car, you got in a car crash, you would never go out. I wouldn't drive. So yeah, 10% death rate is really, really high. By contrast, it's about twice that for smokers and lung cancer.
Whoa,
right? So
really?
That's a really, really high death rate. Oh, yeah, yeah. So, so my point is that virus, and it's interesting because people say, well, what happened? And I've had people ask me this a lot, so I've really done a lot of research to make sure I can answer that question powerfully for people. Now, you know what happens. You have a child and you're a man, you get a new distinction called senior. Before that, you're just, Reverend Jesse Jackson. You have a son and you name him Jesse, then you become Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. and your son becomes a junior. This is what happened with SARS. It was originally called SARS-CoV. Now it's SARS-CoV-1 because we've got SARS-CoV-2. So let's compare those two real quick. SARS-CoV-1 infected about 8,000 people worldwide, and just under 800 of those people died, 10% death rate. No deaths in the U.S., but look at the way it moved. Everybody that contracted SARS-CoV-1 had symptoms, and they had severe symptoms, and those symptoms set in within 2 to 3 days. That makes contact tracing and isolation and all that stuff easy because everybody got symptoms. We didn't have all these asymptomatic carriers. We didn't have people who had no outward symptoms, but were still able to share virus and infect others. We never had a vaccine for SARS-CoV-1. We did the laboratory development. We did the preclinical studies and tested out vaccines in mice and non-human primates like monkeys and found some, vaccine injury / risk. So we never actually moved into clinical trial phase. And while we were doing all this stuff, the virus itself just petered out. It just petered out. Didn't spread as much. It was easier to contain because it was easier to identify cases, get them in isolation. Contact tracing was a lot easier, and the virus itself just petered out. with SARS-CoV-2, it spread so much. And honestly, a part of me thinks the lower death rate has something to do with how we as a global society and definitely as a nation interacted with this one. You know, people heard originally 1%, 2%, max in some places 3%. And they went, pshaw, no big deal. Mm-hmm. And we let this thing spread and spread and spread. And the more it spread, the more mutations we got. And each one of those mutations that rose to the level of what the WHO calls a variant of concern, we've learned a little bit more about how this particular virus moves. Delta doubled twice as fast as the strain before it, and Omicron, they say, doubled twice as fast as Delta. Delta had all these mutations on the inside of the molecule and caused much more severe illness. Omicron has 40-some-odd mutations on the spike protein on the outside, and as a result, spreads more easily. It takes very little virus for you to actually become infected. And so the fact that we've let this spread and go on as long as it has, it's unfortunate because we've got this interesting patchwork that we didn't even have for SARS-CoV-1, which is we've got all these people that have been infected. And in theory, for some period of time, those people then have some natural immunity that they gain from infection and recovery. We've got all these people who got vaccinated, but we did not do the work to stop it from spreading, which would have reduced all of these mutations and these variants. And so now it's become endemic and it's just stuck with us. You know, it's possible that it could peter out, but the way viruses work, that doesn't make sense at this point because it's thriving and spreading, all across the globe. And so it's just unfortunate because we had tools, and even the tools we have right now, we're not actively deploying and we're not using them at the same time to bring the strategies that we know to bear to bring this thing to a more reasonable, manageable conclusion. And so, I feel like what we've done is we've decided we will accept a certain amount of death and we will accept and tolerate a certain amount of infection. And eventually people will just stop letting this dominate their life, which is what I think you're starting to see now. You know, I'm hearing a count of people who know they're infected but are asymptomatic and are just out. And they're even out, many of them unmasked. There's a myth that people have, and I think this in part got sort of fueled by this new CDC recommendation that if you're asymptomatic, you can't infect people. But also saying, this Omicron strain is not that serious, so it's not that big of a deal. It's just like a cold.
But Dr. Verholden, when we hear,
not a big deal.
But I even heard not a commentator, an anchor on television say she was trying to use vaccination and inoculation with the COVID-19 vaccination and inoculation interchangeably. And I said, no, with my limited knowledge of the language, inoculation means you don't get something. And see, it's by putting, because that's what vaccines and vaccination means to us. So I think that there's a lot of confusion, to borrow a phrase from a great novel from the Harlem Renaissance period. I mean, because now, I want you to speak to this when we get back. Kansas will stop contact tracing. The state of Kansas will stop contact tracing for COVID-19 next month because they said it is, quote, futile, close quote. As confirmed, and even as confirmed cases are increasing. And they said that the public is less interested. I think that people are fatigued, but we're getting so many different messages that in addition to the fatigue, you just don't know what to do with the information you've got. I mean, we're seeing spread in hospitals because we now have healthcare workers, we have doctors, we have nurses, we have people. It's not your fault if you have COVID, but they're asymptomatic and they're going back to work. That's what they've been told to do, and they're spreading it. We need some help. We need to figure out how we can mitigate this. I mean, I don't know if I can wear a mask.
We didn't talk about this.
No, we
didn't
get
talk
back
about this a lot, but the CDC changed its definition a vaccination.
Absolutely.
In order to continue to be able to call the COVID vaccine a vaccine.
Yeah, and herd immunity. They changed that too. So when you do that, that's what you know. But that is not what people don't know what that means. We're still on the old definition of, at least for this vaccine, we're still on the old definition of vaccines. And that has made people very, very confused. And I'm not going to say that they're behaving in a foolhardy way. I'm saying that they're going off of the information they have about what a vaccine means. So we're going to talk about that. And of course, Dr. Knighton, you need to talk to us about how we can protect ourselves. Oh my gosh, she's going to make me nervous. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT, and of course, the Santita Jackson Show on YouTube. Everybody, please get on over there, and the Santita Jackson and Friends page, not the Santita Jackson page. I can't take any friends over there. I want you to come on over to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. That's where I can meet you. Hey, Daphne. Hey, Daryl. Hey, El Stanley. Hey, Hannah from South Carolina. Joyce and Andre sending you much love, and Barbara from Oak Park sending you much love. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Making fun of my emoji.
Chicago's Progressive Talk.
All right, I got you.
WCPT Willow Springs. And
Do you know,
online, WCPT.
do you know how long it took me to get my emoji right?
Matter. Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds.
Oh, be quiet.
If you're a 50-year-old
Matt, can you bring this down a bit because I can't hear the doctor.
Diabetes.
Okay, I'm sorry. What were you saying? Before I have him cut you off.
She said she's trying to get to the beach so she can get a tan. She missed the sun. What does this mean? Whose thumb is this? Whose hand is this?
Umgawa. How about that? Black power. Girl, you know what? When I came back from Cuba, I had been away for like 3.5, almost 4 months. One summer I was in Denmark. A friend of our parents was a brilliant chemist and research scientist, and he was teaching over there. So I went over there with him and his family for the summer. But I spent the last 2 weeks of my summer in Cuba. I did not know. I was only 15. I did not know that Black people needed sunscreen. So maybe 3 or 4 days into the trip, I just felt a little strange. Girl, a weekend, I am blistering. I am in the infirmary. I had sunburn, girl. And when I got home, I had 2nd-degree burns. That tropical sun is it's no joke. And when I walked into my father's office, my whole family were waiting for me because I hadn't seen them since the spring.
Yep.
I walked in, they didn't recognize me. And I said, Daddy, Mom, Mother. And he looked at me and he said, welcome to the race. Girl, my mother jumped up. She said, we have to call Andy, who was our doctor, who lived across the street. And girl, my skin peeled for months, just in sheets. It was just, but I did enjoy my tan before it turned crispy. Everybody wears sunscreen. But the thing is, you know what? I didn't stay out in the sun. It was just the tropical heat is so strong. It's so strong that even when you're indoors, it's baking you. Oh. So now, so don't talk about me and my aspirations. I'm tired of you. Because it took me a long time to try and get that emoji right. Watch this message I'm about to send to you. How about that? Yeah. No, I just responded to you. I looked and I said, wait, let me put on these glasses. I think she said something to me. Not very nice. Oh, man. I almost put something else in there. But I'll put that in your ear. Anyway, but it's Dr. Knighton, are you there?
Okay, we got about 1 minute.
Okay, is Dr. Knighton there? Oh,
Yep.
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? You sound so teacherly. I love it. Okay, I love it. Do you want to go right? Do you want to jump back before we get into masks and mitigation? Do you want to jump into what vaccine, how the definition changed, Dr. Verholden? I think that you should.
We can. It just goes to show
30 seconds.
That we talk about following the science, and I don't think that's what we're doing. I think we're either ignoring the science or shape-shifting it to fit what people want to do.
and that's how people feel about it. And that's not, that's not safe. Tell you about the tropics. Oh, look, Mark, I know you know about the tropics. It was quite an experience, but it was still great. But I was in a lot of pain when I finally got home. Oof.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want to hear your voices today. 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. We're taking your COVID Q&A questions. COVID tests, plural. COVID tests, plural, .gov. COVIDtest.gov. Go online so that you can get your free, we're all paying for them anyway, but you will not have to pay for these COVID tests, and you can get 4 of them. So go online and get them now, because they're about ready to be shipped. And then there are going to be 400 million N95 masks available. Can't wait to talk with Dr. Shanina Knighton about them and, what our options are, because you're not going to be able to use that mask forever. You're not going to be able to use that mask forever. And part of the challenge that we have is we're looking at 7 million coronavirus cases in the state of California, our most populous state, and 1 million new cases last week. 1 million new cases last week. We have to figure out how we can stop the spread, not to mention the fact that Kansas, the state of Kansas, said that they will stop contact tracing. Before you tell us how the definition of vaccine changed, because it changed in September, I think, of 2021, help me to understand contact tracing. Is it important? And what do you think about the state of Kansas saying it's futile? Nobody wants to participate.
Well, so, it is important, right? But let's put it in context, okay? And I'm not making an excuse for anybody, but, if you, like in my community, for example, right now, our community case rate last week was 38.6%, almost 40%. That's got a lot of sort of bias potentially associated with it, because there are a lot of people who, 3 weeks ago were getting tested every week. And now, because people are waiting in line outside for hours to get tested, there are so many people who are infected in the community. And that's just if we look at the raw numbers based on what we know from positive test cases. A lot of people who would normally get tested are saying, I'm not being bothered with these places. Employers are now allowing people to work at home again, and some of this other stuff. So a lot of people who would normally get tested just aren't getting tested right now. A lot of the people clearly who are getting tested are people who are, have symptoms or a known exposure, et cetera. So you got to take that number with a grain of salt. But the testing positivity rate is really, really high, and we have a really, really high number of cases. What that means is the burden and the work of doing the contact tracing has become that much more when in many places staff are out, the health departments are understaffed. I think our department has like 20 plus job openings that they can't fill. I myself have job openings I can't fill. I used to have people who would apply for a research assistant position to come work with me nationally. I had people who would be monitoring the Michigan State University job site for an opportunity to come work with me just as a research assistant. I had a woman who moved here from D.C. just to work with me. I can't fill a research assistant position, easily right now. So there's a whole lot of factors that are happening at the same time. And the other side of it is a lot of what people would normally be doing with contact tracing, one could offer when the physical entities that do that work just physically don't have the people to do it, it is a reasonable ask for the infected person to notify the people in their life, and it calls out for better systems to be put in place that aren't so labor intensive. So in Michigan, we have something called the My COVID Tracking app. I'm a part of that app. It's really funny. The day that I got my positive test results, later that afternoon, I got an alert from the My COVID Tracking app that I had recently been exposed to somebody who tested COVID positive. It was alerting me, I believe, about myself. Then my children are also in the My COVID Alert app. They also got an alert. I thought that was really, really cool that once I tested positive, the people who had been around me got alerted. Funny enough, the only place I had been was to an eye doctor appointment, and I told the people because I had a little incident because there was a woman in there who was unmasked. So I went to that person and asked if she would be told to put her mask on. Little did I know at the time I had COVID. Her putting that mask on protected her from me, right? But I also told the two women that were working in the office about the My COVID Alert app, and one of them installed it on her phone. She also got an alert 2 days later when my COVID test came back positive. So there are things that we can be doing that won't be so labor intensive. And I also think there are ways that we can sort of increase the importance and the messaging for people around why and how you should be alerting people in your life that you've been exposed to if you test positive. Literally, Congressman Dan Kildee in Michigan just tested positive. That all came out in the media yesterday. And it's funny, a very good friend and colleague of mine was just with him on Friday. So when I saw it, I said, did Congressman call you to tell you he got COVID? you was just with him. You might want to go get tested. And he said, no, he didn't call me. And, they met in D.C., and then he said they had a beer, and I said, did you have your mask on, and were you slipping your beer through a straw under the mask? No, I said, well, you probably need to go get tested. So everybody needs to do a much better job of this. So I do feel like people make these crass and callous statements, but if you actually, I work very closely with our health department, very, very closely. I know the tremendous strain that they're under. The state Department of Health and Human Services, which also does contact tracing, we just literally don't have the bodies to do this work. So we've got to figure out better ways to let people know that you've been exposed, and we've got to do a better job of communicating with people the importance of them doing that as well if they test positive.
Very quickly, in about a minute or so, can you let us know how the definition of vaccines and herd immunity, quite frankly, they were changed. They were changed during this pandemic, just a few months ago, but they were changed. So when our traditional knowledge or understanding of vaccines, that's no longer the case. Is it for this vaccine or is it for vaccines overall? What happened?
Yeah, so because the COVID vaccine, it turned out, does not necessarily prevent people from becoming infected, this shift happened, and the definition switched from a vaccine being something that induces immunity that's introduced into the body. The actual definition was vaccination was the act of introducing a vaccine into the body to produce immunity to a specific disease. And they changed the word immunity to the word protection. So it now reads the act of introducing a vaccine into the body to produce protection to a specific disease. It's like these are like subtle differences, but they're important, right? Because immunity implies you're immune, you won't get it. Protection means you're protected, but from what? It's open and it leaves room for you can become infected, but you're protected from insert whatever you want to after the word protected, right? So that was the big switch. It went from immunity to protection. And for a lot of people, that felt like a bait and switch. And then it literally got worse because it was further minimized by saying, well, a lot of vaccines are like that. A lot of vaccines don't stop you from getting infected, but they'll stop you from, getting really ill. And people said, well, y'all never told, any of us that. So yeah, we're seeing just a whole lot of, kind of double-sided talk and kind of changing things as we go along. And I just don't think, that serves people. I think it has gone a long way to just decimate any trust or confidence that people had in government. And we just have to do better. We have to do better.
Yeah.
But I guess it was easier for them to change the whole definition of vaccine and vaccination than it was to call the COVID vaccine something else.
But you know what? If they had just called it a medicine, a medicine that will lessen your chance of having to go to the hospital, I think it would have changed people's behavior. Now people walk around in places and spaces where I am, and if I'm masked up. I'm not wearing 5, but I do have a decorative mask and an N95. Hello, and I do have betadine in my nose and things like that because I'm just trying to protect myself. And they all look at me and because we're on friendly terms and we're not going to have a fight. They'll say, well, hey, I'm vaccinated and boosted. I'm like, you do know you can still have this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't, because when we got vaccinated as children, and I'm older than you, you were not going to get the mumps and measles, rubella, but it's just there are a lot of things that were done in this process, I think, that should not have been done. And you know what? If you just come to the public and say, look, we made some mistakes, I really think that we are forgiving, and then we behave a little differently. I think, but what do I know? Now they're not going to do contact tracing in Kansas, so who knows who's going to have it? Ugh. Dr. Santita Knighton, infection preventionist, you were on a roll yesterday as we were talking about masks and how to wear them and what our options are. When you hear about these, because now masks are at the center of conversation, because now we're going to be able to at least get one N95 mask, each one of us. And now we're going to be able to get these COVID tests, covidtests.org. .gov. covidtests.gov, everybody. Go there so that you can get these tests that you don't have to pay for. You don't have to come out of pocket for those. Where do we begin? California, 1 million cases in 1 week. What do they not know in California? What do we not know in Germany? What do we not know in the United States? What do we not know? Because we're seeing surges even where there are vaccination rates. But this is the fly in the ointment. Everybody's not getting boosted. Oh, you go for it. Help us, Dr. Knighton.
So, for one, I'll be honest, I think the most disheartening piece is that we tend to ignore that history repeats itself. The other thing is we are ignoring science. We're ignoring what we have learned and what we have discovered thus far of strategies and things that do work. And it is these, again, one single track prevention methods that I'm seeing, or I would say tracking methods that I see, that I'll be honest, it has become very frustrating. For example, am I surprised right now that Omicron is as prevalent as it is? I said 2 years ago that it was going to be endemic. I said that COVID was going to be with us for some time now, or some variation of it. And guess what? It's still here and it's still with us. I said that as our children began to return to school, and that as they returned to school, we had a government that tended to pick up more testing strategies, which means, of course, there is more detection that is happening. So we knew that it was going to continue to evolve. Now, what's perplexing is we know that the flu season peaks between December and February, right? So December and February, the flu season peaks, which right now we can already speculate that COVID peaks at the same exact time, especially looking at the CDC data where we know that flu and pneumonia are co-infections to COVID for the individuals that have died. It's one of the highest combinations, for death and hospitalization. So with us understanding that these masks are getting ready to be deployed, right? And then to the fact that here it is, we're using the same formula for the same vaccine for 2 years. So we're not going to ignore the fact that this is the first time that a COVID-19 vaccine was created, and that literally we are placing so much emphasis on science and not even thinking about the fact that, yes, mistakes can happen. mistakes do happen. So we're not thinking about the fact that, yes, are we 2 years later and maybe it's just not working as well as we thought it was. Maybe the effectiveness of it is wearing off. So instead, there's all of these measures that are being ramped up. So now it's, Omicron is even more contagious. Delta was contagious. Coronaviruses in general are contagious. So this is not a matter of us playing which one is more contagious. Does the formula still work, right? So then December through March, or December through February, when this peak season is getting ready to start to die down, because again, we know this based off of history, based off of how the flu and other respiratory illnesses have traveled. So now when March comes around, we'll have a new formulation for a vaccine. We'll have 400 million masks that are going to be dispersed. And guess what? It's going to be attributed to the fact that now we have a new vaccine and now we have masks. And now we have given everyone tests. Because we're really not thinking about this thing holistically, right? So then we're going to get the tests, we're going to get the vaccines, we're going to get the mask, and then we'll be right back next fall talking about, okay, well, geez, people didn't wear the mask like they were supposed to, or, it didn't work because everybody only got one. Because we're not going to also talk about the fact that 400 million masks are being dispersed. They're really only meant for one-time use. How are they getting ready to be processed again? And on top of how they're going to be processed again, there are individuals, and I'm saying this on the radio to your listeners, if you know that you have a loved one that has COPD, if you know that you have someone that has breathing issues that has been questionable with the mask, if you are someone that's like, I don't know why I'm all of a sudden get shortness of breath, please go talk to your primary care provider and ask them for a pulmonary function test. And ask them, do you think that I'm safe enough to be able to wear a KN95 or an N95 mask? Because respirators are not meant for everybody, and they are going to pose harms and risks for some individuals. And so I am concerned right now with the strategies that are taking place, because we're literally wanting to think of things as cause and effect, and none of this is cause and effect. It all goes together. All of these should be risk-lowering strategies, but we also have to think about what has been happening over time. If we've had an increase of tests, meaning that now we're testing our children, yes, we're looking at spread more. We're also looking at, in some areas, where hospitalizations are lower, in other areas they're higher. Why is that? Is it because there's co-infections that are existing, which the CDC has disclosed that is a thing. So it's hospitalizations attributed to that. We also know that just in general, even prior to COVID, there's been a peak of hospitalizations during this time of year. I hate to say it, but people actually end up having spikes after they eat the Thanksgiving food. People have spikes because we have illnesses like cold illnesses, pneumonia. These things typically happen around this time. We know that accidents, when we're talking about holiday accidents, car accidents, the day after Thanksgiving is the highest time for that. So you're looking at all of these things that are accumulating together, but we're still thinking of it as a one factorial thing. It's not just because the people that were vaccinated stop practicing prevention. It's because while the government is sending out 400 masks, are they also sending out cleaning materials for businesses? Are they upping those practices, making sure that when you go in and you touch doorknobs, that they have enough staff there that's going to make sure that they're cleaned in between each patron? Are we thinking about the ventilation systems, and has there been upgrades throughout everywhere if we know that it spreads inside? So instead of putting the onus on these companies to update the HVAC systems, it is now saying that we can update masks, when we know that whether it's an N95 or whether it's a combination of a 3-layer mask and a surgical mask, or a medical mask and a medical brace, which fits over the mask to bring the sides in, that still provides somewhere up to a 99% protection when we're talking about droplets. But yet we're only pushing one option as if everybody's not going to have just one mask or a few masks, and especially depending on if you're an essential worker and you need those masks every single day. So how are you going to replenish them, replace them, and then guarantee that if that particulate filter comes in contact with COVID-19 and you go home and now you want to wear it again after 5 days, which they're recommending now, and you have no choice because that's the only thing that you think is going to protect you, and you're not educated. Now are you then transferring those particles back to yourself because that mask is now contaminated? So right now, what it is, we have to make sure that the public is looking at their education strategies that they saw before when it came to how to handle a mask, how to wear a mask, because that's another thing. With the N95, if you're not wearing it at the crown of your head, which is the bottom strap, and wearing the top strap at the base of your neck, you're not going to get that complete seal around your mouth and your nose. And depending on the mouth and your nose, I'm not sure what size N95 mask they're sending out, but not one size fits all.
Let me bring on Renee. Renee has a question regarding COVID. Renee, got a lot of information.
Yes, a whole lot. And good morning.
Good morning.
I was listening to you guys, and when I think about double talk, I think about sleazy salespeople who try to sell you inferior products that they know don't work the way that they're saying they're going to work. And they do that because they're trying to make a profit for themselves. And, when I think about the vaccine and all the double talk and how they're backbiting on what they said, it makes me think about what their real goal could have been in all of this. One of the real goals could have been to make a lot of profit, because we know Pfizer, for the big three, Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson made a lot of money. Pfizer and Moderna, billions and billions and billions of extra dollars have gone into their pockets. And we know the people in Congress have that profit because they have stock in those pharmaceutical companies.
They can trade.
And I would imagine
they can trade with insider information, Renee. Unbelievable.
And I bet people at the CDC, I would imagine they might have some investments in there, and they're being nudged by people in government and the top who controls things to tell them what to say and what. We can see that with Donald Trump and Fauci. I don't think that's changed since Trump left office. But when I think about all this, I also think about I've seen other people who have been working on vaccines for years. There was one guy on Democracy Now! Couldn't get funding from the government. Now he's working with Santita, I can't remember, but he's getting a vaccine that he's going to give in other countries like Indonesia and stuff. And I think about Novavax, how hard of a time they've had, but maybe they are riding in to save the day, to maybe, I hope not trick people, because my daughter's been waiting for Novavax for a year. She's been tracking them.
I only have a couple minutes left here I want Dr. Knight and Dr. Verholden to respond to you. In fact, why is your daughter waiting for Novavax?
Well, she's been reading about it for over a year, and it's a protein-based vaccine. She said it's not the mRNA vaccine. Mm-hmm. She's been tracking how it works as opposed to the other one. But Santita, one last thing. I wonder why is it that China, that has so many more people than us, why are their death rates so much lower than us? 4,636 deaths and 100,000 cases. 100,000 cases of COVID, and they have way more people. Do they care more about their people than the prophets? Does Cuba care more about their people than the prophets?
The continent of Africa? I mean, Africa is not being taken down by this at all. I've got about 45 seconds. Dr. Verholden, why don't you speak to her, and we'll speak a little bit more during the break.
Yeah, this notion around the double talk.
You've been talking to your credit. You've been speaking to that.
Yeah, and it's funny because I actually had a colleague who called me yesterday and said, I need you to stay in your lane. I said, what do you mean? And I've made some public statements about what I feel about this administration's response, not as a critic, but here's what I think we could and should be doing. And I feel like that is the role of the, public health activist, because I'm not just a researcher. I'm not just a scientist. I'm not just a professor. I'm also very much an activist. And I use my research to promote activism because my work is about improving the public's health. And we are in the midst of this crisis, which is so obviously fueled by politics, which is fueled by business and all of these other, factors related to greed and economy. It's like I didn't ask for this. I didn't create that landscape. I had to really think about what my colleague was saying, because he truly meant me no harm. And his thing is, Dean Verhoeven, what's next for you is you will be the dean of a school of public health. Do you think that you'll be able to do this and speak out this way as a dean?
Wait. Let me say this to you. Let me say this to you as we go to break, because I'm running over. If you don't do this, you will not last long. There is public mistrust of all establishment and establishment figures that is sweeping the globe right now. They need to have someone who is worthy of our trust and who's trustworthy. So you can tell him, I'm saving your job. Because people don't trust you. I can't take you anywhere. Be very clear. I have to be your public face. So no, he was being nice, but he was also trying to intimidate. I'm clear on that too. Stop playing with me. I told you, I don't do cross-species love. I don't play with puppies and they don't lick me in my mouth. The fact is this. People are not trusted. We got to do something about that. Back in just a minute. Deborah, they're wrong. Because I'm going to tell you something. All you have to do, Renee, girl, please don't get me started. You've already got me wound up. You know that. Because
I got your pressure up.
And my pressure's low. But, because I you. If you don't have the credibility and the trust of the people, look at what's happening to Dr. Fauci. Don't look at the excerpts of his call. Everybody, when you can, go on YouTube and look at the whole thing. Not only is it contentious, it's nasty, and it lets you know there is a lack of there is diminishing public trust in him. And this man has served us. You don't have to agree with everything he's done, but he has served the public for more than 40 years. And it breaks my heart to see him in his 80s. He's taken some hits. These are not easy things, but you know what? There have been a lot of missteps. There have been a lot of mistakes.
Well,
no criticism. I'm sorry. What is that?
Absolutely. And what's funny is I take it all the time on the chin. And it's a part of, I think it's a part of why people keep inviting me back. But there was a point when I could do something and I could get 100 positive reports and I would focus on the one negative one. And then what I realized is most people don't want to admit when they've made a mistake, and most people don't want to own their fault because we're so busy being defined by our success that by default, you also have to be defined by the failure. And I always tell people, I'm a player. I like the game. I have a goal. I have an intention with my life professionally, and I am that it shall be, and I won't stop until that gets fulfilled. So I also don't get too high on the highs. I got so many awards this year, it's not even funny. And I literally was like, I wanted to be honest, and I was like, well, I appreciate that people have noticed because I worked regular. I mean, I've done 2 years. I have been working nonstop, but I don't do it for that, and I didn't allow myself to get swept away by it. Similarly, when I get criticism, and I get a lot, I get so much hate mail on Facebook. People email me because my email address is public on my MSU email account. Every big public appearance I do, inevitably somebody lashes out at me. I can't tell you how many times I've been called a racist for talking about racism, a race baiter for just calling out what's so and saying, and not just, again, calling it out because I'm not just a critic. And there is a role for the critic in all of this, but that's not who I am. But I have to start with what's so we can then talk about what the path forward is. See, if we can't be with what's so, then nothing is possible. And that stuff has got me a lot of criticism. And I just take it, as par for the course. I'm like, I'm up to something. So, of course, people want to have something to say about me. It's why I have something to say about so many other things, because people are up to something. So while I'm not a big Dr. Fauci fan, I wouldn't fully discredit him. I do think it's time for brother to retire.
Well, let me tell you something. When you see these hearings, you see how You see where the public is with him. Rand Paul represents some people, not just people in Kentucky. And it's not just Republican. Stephen A. Smith from ESPN, fully vaccinated, fully boosted, almost died over the Christmas holidays with a horrible strain of COVID. You got to speak to
but
that.
You know what, Santita?
Yes.
But Santita, that's the thing. We're not talking about what other, like, that's the thing. When these stories are shared, we don't know people's underlying condition. We don't know if that man was dealing with lupus. We
That's
don't know
right.
if he was dealing with high blood pressure and all of these other conditions, which would have already put him at risk. And I understand he's saying, like, yeah, you know, the vaccine saved my life. But I'm going to be honest, it's a couple of things I don't think that we talk about. And that's the fact of letting our body do its job. So it's so many people running out to get boosted that recover from COVID. And it's like, you can go to the us.gov travel website before you traveling abroad, and they tell you that you can travel if you've had COVID within the last 90 days. So why is it that people are encouraging boosters right after you've had COVID? Why would you not let your body do what it needs to do at least for 3 months?
My father
had just,
my father just come out the hospital with COVID. He was encouraged to get boosted. I'm like, wait, you were just in the hospital a month ago. Are you serious?
It's not even letting the body fully do what it needs to do before it recovers. But going back to your speaker real quick, because she was talking about the Novavax vaccine.
Mm-hmm. I've got 1 minute.
That manufacturer, that is a U.S. vaccine, by the way. So I just want to put that out there. And even though it's being tested right now in India and other places, it's literally the headquarters is somewhere over America.
Okay, I have attorneys Hoffler, Jones, and Lamar ready. I'm still working on getting a hold of Attorney Patillo.
Over in India. And she is right. It's a protein-based vaccine, which does differ than the formulation that's in the vaccines that's being offered here.
So, I mean, so what? Does Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J just have a lock on the United States? I mean, because I know what they use in Israel is Pfizer. I mean, you know, on options. And don't tell me about this one size fit all. And if I got the J&J, then I can get the Moderna. And if I got the Moderna, I can get the Pfizer. But what? When I go to the dentist, they want to know if I've had ibuprofen or if I have had a leave. They need to know because they're like, no. If you took aspirin, then that's going to change what I can do for you. I can't give you this particular treatment. Look, you know, Dr. Deb, the reason you are here is because the people want you here. Dr. Shanina, you're here because the people want you here, and the people want you here because they trust you. Okay? So you keep on going. We've got you.
Yeah, I will tell you as an academic, and Dr. Knighton can back me up on this. When you say things that are counter to your peers or your colleagues' point of view, it is a very
10 seconds
hostile climate.
Stand by. Well, you know what? I grew up with that. And you know what? Jesus did it too. Dr. King did it. Gandhi did it. Join that band, honey. How about that? You don't want to be Pontius Pilate.
Sorry, now it's 10 seconds.
Okay. Stand by. Hey, y'all. Everybody with legal Q&A with CK. Y'all, Dr. Knighton and Dr. Verholden, just stick around. We'll talk about it.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, Wednesday, January 19th, 2022. It's a joy to be with you today. I want you to meet me on Facebook, on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, and on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show channel. Everybody, please get over there and like and subscribe. And when you want to meet me on Facebook, don't go to the Santita Jackson page. Go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. I can't take any friend requests on the Santita Jackson page. So I had to open up a fan page, but that's where I interact with people. So please go there. Everybody, let's talk about President Biden. Legal Q&A with CK. There are a lot of legal issues that are before him today. Voting rights will receive an up or down vote, we do believe, today. Even if I wonder if they're going to have the talking filibuster. That is what Senator Schumer said. So we're going to see. But we've got a lot of issues, police reform, and his polling numbers, which he went from getting the most votes of any presidential candidate in history to being the second most unpopular since they've been taking those, really been doing those measurements. Wow, what happened? What happened? Can't wait to talk with C.K. Hoffler in this tremendous panel that she has amassed about that. Everybody, I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT, and let's get it going today. You can text me at that number as well. Chicago, we will have a high 35 degrees, but the temperatures are going to fall, and it's going to feel like it's below zero very, very by the end of the day. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 6 degrees, partly cloudy. The Dow closed down 543 points. The NASDAQ closed down 386 points. The S&P 500 closed down 85 points. In the NBA, the Timberwolves won in a nail-biter over the Knicks, 112 to 110, and the Cavaliers will be facing off against the Bulls tonight. Everybody, let's get right to this, everybody. Let's get right to this. Before I get to the rest of this segment, as we look at voting rights, which will be voted on today, as we look at covidtest.gov, where you can order your COVID-19 test. Please go there, everybody. They're available. Now they've opened up the website. You can go there and you will get it within 7 to 12 days so that we can all get tested and know what our statuses are. COVID tests, plural.gov. And we'll also be able to get N95 masks. 400 million of them are being made available to Americans. Everybody, before we go to the rest of the show, let's look at I want to talk to you about Team Hochberg. You've been hearing about them, and you can reach them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. Why? Because you know what? Black mortgage applicants, for example, are denied 84% more often than white applicants. Yeah, you heard me right. Black mortgage applicants are denied 84% more often than white applicants. And why does that happen? Well, I think we understand, but oftentimes if they just look at the numbers, because that's how they do it now, you can't refinance your home. You don't have a high enough credit score. You don't have any credit. Maybe you've been paying in cash. Well, David Hochberg and his team can help you to work through all of that. They can help you to build credit, rebuild your credit, and restore your credit. What if you've had a bankruptcy? What if you've had a really hard time in this pandemic? This is what they're doing. This is what they're doing. A lot of people started living paycheck to paycheck. Doug and Christine, married, 3 kids. They needed forbearance so that they could hold on to their homes. But the challenge was the increased cost of gas and other utilities ballooned their credit card debt to over $30,000. They went to Team Hochberg and worked that out. So now they were able to secure some cash, pay off that debt, and get a financial reset. That can happen to you, whatever your background, that can happen to you. So we want you to go to 855-56-DAVID. Call them at 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com so that you can get some help. It is not too late to save your home. That is his mission. That is what David Hochberg wants to do, and that is what he's been doing for thousands of WCPT listeners, and he wants to help you too, AM 950 radio listeners up in Minnesota. He's licensed to help you there. So I want you to please call 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, 56david.com. Just go on and see some of what he does. I mean, he does reverse mortgages. He does a lot of things that can help you. There's no problem that is too hard for David Hochberg and his team. Let's save our homes, everybody. So let's get to it. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, legal Q&A with C.K. We got a lot to talk about today. We're looking at, maybe the vote for voting rights will come up. But, Senator Schumer says, well, maybe I have a way around this, a way around these 2 votes that he says that, we're looking for. Even though many people are saying you don't just need 2 votes, maybe you need Lisa Murkowski, who's up for re-election, who needs indigenous people and their vote. Maybe you need to go to Susan Collins, who is a moderate Republican. Maybe you need to go to Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney said, all you have to do is call me. Maybe I won't change my mind. Maybe I will. I don't know. His family has a history of being quite progressive on these issues. His father, as the governor of Michigan, was a civil rights champion. Yes, that is why the Republican establishment has not trusted him ever. So we've got a lot to talk about today. A lot to talk about. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, wow. I mean, how we have gone from 80 million votes to the second lowest approval rating of any president. That is what has happened to President Joe Biden in a year. In a year, I just wow. How does that happen?
Yeah. Well, Santita, there's there's so many factors I think that account for that. But first, this is a time of year right after Dr. King's birthday, as we celebrate Dr. King and all that he has meant to this country and the world. A lot of times we start reflecting on what is happening to our country, what's happening politically, what's happening legally. And so when we look at President Biden's approval rating, the state of the union right now, the legal structures that have failed us, policing reform, civil rights, voting rights, and we look at a report card, if you will, we're not really doing so well on that report card. We have maybe a C minus, some people say a D, but I am hopeful that C minus or D will become a B, and then that B will become an A, but it's only going to happen if this administration makes its priority day in and day out that voting rights, policing reform, and civil rights be a priority. That's the only way that it's going to happen.
Well, let me ask you this. Just to interrupt, because because we're looking at voting rights today. We're looking at everything right now, because I think the Democrats are now throwing everything up against the wall because we're in 2022 and we've got these midterms, right? And right behind that, 2024. Reverend Jesse Jackson has said, look, what President Biden needs to do is take that speech that he gave in Atlanta last week and have a joint session of Congress give a speech supporting voting rights. Do you agree with that?
I agree. I agree I agree with Reverend Jackson on that, and I think that would be one strong step, but he's got to go further. He's got to continue. The one thing that President Biden has always been known for is reaching across the aisle, working the halls of Congress, working the halls of the Senate, being able to talk to anyone, persuading and convincing. And from sun up to sundown, that's what he needs to do. And he may very well be doing that, but also his surrogates must be doing that. Because in order for there to be the passage of a Voting Rights Act right now, all hands on deck has to be in effect. Nothing short of that. And so, Santita, we've assembled this morning an incredible team of exceptional lawyers that have been in the trenches on all of these issues from the various vantage points. And I think it'd be interesting to hear from them when we talk about President Biden's report card, because, intertwined in all this is a very strong legal analysis. When we think about voting rights, there are voting rights cases pending right now throughout the country challenging these suppressive voting rights or statutes, for example, in Georgia. And there are other cases that involve voting rights that are pending throughout the country. We think of policing reform. There hasn't been the passage of a George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. People expected that. The president ran on the need for policing reform. Well, that hasn't happened. And so the policing reform, what has happened with these cases? We've seen some very favorable verdicts in terms of the victims, vindication for the victims and their families. We also have a need for prison reform. So there are a number of legal questions intertwined in what's happening on Capitol Hill and at the administration level. And I thought that we would, get the advice of some of our movie stars who have been on your show, Santita, before, given your listeners and viewers the benefit of the extraordinary legal acumen, starting with Robert Patillo. He's the Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push Coalition. He's also an extraordinary civil rights and criminal defense attorney.
That's right. And radio host.
I thought we could add,
you all,
and radio host.
You're both on WAOK. You were there yesterday at 11 o'clock Central Eastern Standard Time every Tuesday, and he is on Sundays from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. I have to put that out there, CK.
Absolutely. But when it comes to being in the trenches and fighting for the least of these, I just thought we'd start with Robert Patillo. We also have two other exceptional guests.
Absolutely. And Robert, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about 80 million votes to being the second lowest approval rating of any president. Wow. Since they've been taking these kinds of measurements.
Well, what the mistake that Biden made was the literal exact same mistake that Obama made. It's Obama part two in many ways, just without the charisma. Because what they've done is you run on this very bold, progressive campaign, these big ideas, canceling student loan debts, passing H.R. 4, reforming the criminal justice system, Green New Deal, big, bold ideas. And then you get into office, and the first thing you say is, like, look, all that stuff we ran on, we ain't doing none of it. Like, not one part of it, not one piece, not even the first drop of it, we're not going to do. So who support do you get by doing that? Well, your base is going to, of course, turn against you, because the Democratic side of the aisle is not a cult of personality like the other side, where they'll support no matter what the person does, as long as that's their martyr, as long as that's their hero at this point in time. So you alienate your base, and then these quote unquote centrists, the Rust Belt voters, these white working class voters, they're always trying to appeal to. Well, guess what? Those folks ain't coming back. They left the party after Clinton. They might dip their toe back in every once in a while, but they're not coming back to the party. They're just culturally or distinctive from what the core of the Democratic Party is now. And then this idea of bringing over these conservatives or these moderate Republicans into the Democratic Party, well, that just doesn't exist. The moderate Republicans are called rhinos now. They are an endangered species in their own party. So this idea that you're going to bring them en masse to the Democratic Party by having these kind of centrist, moderate, milquetoast, uninspiring type of public policy positions, well, now you've alienated literally 3/4 of the country. So when you only have a quarter of the country supporting you, it's just kind of academic at that point. So President Biden wants to get his numbers back up. He's going to have to take some bold actions, executive actions, and get some points on the board. Because if you're a Democrat running for Senate, let's say, if you're in a position like Raphael Warnock, what is Joe Biden giving you to bring back to the state when you're going to be in a tough reelection race against probably Herschel Walker? If you're a House Democrat in the swing district and purple district, what exactly is Joe Biden giving you to run on? So, of course, it's going to be rats fleeing a sinking ship as everybody tries to hang on to their own political future, and President Biden's going to get a hold of that.
CK?
Santita?
Who else do we have? Yes, because we have some callers.
I just want to respond as
Is this Dr. Knighton?
As a guest, okay? Yeah, and I'm on the other end as a caller just right now for just 1 second to make a comment to say yes,
from Cleveland
to everything he just said. And then the other piece of that is, I feel like there is a higher accountability for us holding President Biden accountable, because we know that he has had a similar role with working for Obama. So, yeah, we do expect that all of the expectations or all of the things that were promised that he would deliver on, because this isn't your first merry-go-round with being close to that seat.
I hear you. I mean, Robert, why don't you respond to her? Were expectations higher for President Biden?
Well, yes, because, we just got kind of, from the progressive point of view, we just kind of got hustled from 2008 to 2016. Love Obama to death and everything, but as far as what we were expecting when we were, for a lot of us in that Obama generation, that was our first campaign, knocking on doors in Chicago and negative weather, or going up to Minnesota for the primaries, those sorts of things. So you were expecting big things. Obama literally campaigned and said, I'm going to heal the earth. And because of his charisma, because of being first, because of the rise of the Tea Party, he in many ways got a pass. I think Biden, by running as Obama 2.0, he's not getting that same pass. He doesn't have, Sasha and Malia and Michelle and Bo to kind of take that heat off of him. He doesn't have, the grand American story of overcoming like Obama did. So we're really focused on policy now. And if you're focused on policy and they're not coming through with policy, there's nothing really to fall back on. So I think Biden was starting from a tough position. People are more alert to making sure that the things that he campaigned on actually happened. And other people are saying that not only have they not happened, they're not happening, and they're not going to happen. Well, you put yourself in a bad spot.
C.K. Hoffler, who else do we have on board?
Well, we've got two extraordinary attorneys. We've heard before from Gerald Griggs. Gerald Griggs is a civil rights attorney. He's a voting rights attorney. He's a criminal defense attorney. He's a former prosecutor. He has represented the least of these. He's an officer in the NAACP. He is really the people's attorney. He's an extraordinary trial lawyer. And he was actually co-counsel, Santita, on the voting rights case that we filed right before the Senate runoff election in Georgia, where we were challenging the Secretary of State for, we believe, purging close to 200,000 voters. So Gerald Griggs, on all issues of social justice in this country, and especially in Georgia, is on point. So he's one of our morning stars. We also have Keith Lamar. Keith Lamar is also a former prosecutor. He's a former president of the National Black Prosecutors Association. He's a trial lawyer. He now does both criminal defense and civil work in Atlanta, Georgia. And then we have Lee Darrell Jones, chair of the board of Transformative Justice Coalition. I might add both Rainbow Push and Transformative Justice Coalition were clients that brought that voting rights case in Georgia that Gerald Griggs and I and a bunch of other lawyers worked on. So it's just, I feel like we're in family here. But most importantly, Santina, these morning stars have been on point on all of these issues and been watching very carefully what's been happening with voting rights, with policing reform, and been in the trenches fighting, much like Robert Patillo. So
Amen.
Gerald Griggs, I think, could
Attorney
really
Griggs?
give some insight.
Yeah. Attorney Griggs, what say you? We might see voting rights. Well, we're certainly been looking at maybe a talking filibuster. Where are we going with this? And should we be concerned about this voting rights legislation? Attorney Griggs? Well, you know, let me pitch that to Attorney Lamar.
Well, good morning, everybody. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great.
What about voting rights? I mean, that is like, we're going to hear the president speak about his first year in office today, but now Chuck Schumer is saying, look, we're going to have a talking filibuster. I think we're going to do that. I'm like, okay, you need to be talking to Romney and Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, but okay, I'll go with it.
Right. Well, you know, when I look at this issue as a whole, you know, it's actually sad that in 2022 that we're talking about limiting, not expanding voting, right? So you would think that this country has been around, we've seen ups and downs, and we've seen some terrible times. And at this date and time, with the coronavirus and everything else we have to worry about in our lifetime, why would you think about limiting and passing bills on limiting voting when we have the technology to expand it to anybody, anywhere? You don't have to be where you at a voting line to vote. That's just not. You can do your taxes online. You can do everything else online, but we just can't vote. You know, and at this point, it's a clear sign that they're trying to limit and voter suppression. It's overly clear. If you can't see it, you're just going to turn a blind eye on purpose. And I think people have to wake up to that fact and realize that this is what's happening. And as we move forward as a country, if we continue to do that, we're going down the same path that Rome did, and we're wrong.
You know, we've got about a minute and a half, CK, before we go to break. It just seems that, you know, the strategy's not right. You know, we keep looking at Senators Sinema and Manchin, and you've got some rhino Republicans who you might be able to talk to. Why they're not talking, giving Mitt Romney some energy, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins. I mean, they should be giving them some energy. If you get 50 votes and you've got Vice President Harris, you can just do a carve out on the filibuster and keep it moving. That's what needs to happen, CK. I've got 30 seconds.
Absolutely, Santita. You know, in our age group, we said go for broke.
Yeah.
The father generation and James Brown, we were taking it to the bridge. Biden needs to go for broke, take it to the bridge, whatever terminology you use, and get this done day in and day out. We have to stop playing around. And maybe that is happening. We just don't know about it. But I doubt it, because there's very little that happens that we don't know about when it comes to trying to get people to persuade people to vote one way or the other. So all hands on deck, Santita. You're absolutely right.
I mean, right now. But, you know, we also had leadership who took it to the bridge, if you will. And they were willing. Girl, I remember watching my father put on a bulletproof coat and vest. Okay? Just to run for president to try and make this country what it's supposed to be. Not to mention the fact that most of the time he didn't have that, and he was under threat all the time. Look, we were first freed from slavery. The 14th Amendment then gave us citizenship. The 15th Amendment gave us black men, but gave us black people the vote. Your citizenship and your freedom is tied up with your vote. Call 202-224-3121, 202-224-121. Call any senator you want to and tell them, get the Republicans, you need to call them, and tell them you are going to be in trouble in Alaska. You're going to be in trouble in Maine. Susan and Lisa, Mitt Romney, you're going to be in trouble if you do not vote for this voting rights. I'm going to make it my business. Come on. Everything is tied up in this. Back with more of Legal Q&A with CK on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a minute. Well, Dr. Knighton just could not resist CK.
I love it. I love it. She said, wait a minute, hold on, wait a minute, wait. I said, wait, I don't care who puts that's what protocol you have. I just have to say this. I have to say it. I have to unleash myself. I got to get it off my chest. I need to speak. And you know what, Santita? That's exactly. She said, look, I'm calling in. I'm hold up in the last, panel. I'm all of this, and I need to just say it now. I don't care who said what, where, how, when, legal Q, and we ain't got nothing to do. I just need to say it. And you know what, Santita? That's exactly what we want. I had to put a little mute. I had to laugh at how, you know how that is. But I thought that was fabulous.
No, I thought you were going to break out into a rap because you all know CK's a rapper. Hold up. Wait a minute.
Okay, I have Mrs. Wells on the line.
It was so, but it was. It was wonderful.
Oh, no. Wait a minute, everybody. I'm not joking. You have not lived until you go to a formal, lovely dinner and you see the beautiful CK. She came out at girls. She was super bad with this sequin pantsuit on. Oh, it was bad. And she comes out and I hear Rapper's Delight. I said, okay, something's not matching here, but I'll go with it. Oh, yeah, she went home through Rapper's Delight. Hip, hop, a hippie to the hippie. Come on, girl. And she did that for my father's birthday. Thank you very much. Loved it. Just said, oh.
Well, I'm hilarious. My day job. I'm my day job, but just in case.
Oh, gosh.
Just in case. But honestly, what's happening now makes you want to break out of your comfort zone and do something.
Mm-hmm.
Do something. I think as Keith Lamar said, you have to have blinders on to not see what's happening. And I think I heard Gerald Griggs. Is Gerald Griggs on the line?
I didn't hear him, but I know we've got to go. Gerald, you're there? Okay. Well, we have Jones, and then there is a caller for you. Okay.
Oh. Okay.
Yep. Okay. We got some. Yes. People want to know what's going on. I cannot wait for to hear all of you. It's just it's a pleasure. Attorney Lamar, thank you so much for being with us today. And Attorney Jones.
I love coming on the show.
Oh, look, I'll have you more. You don't have to tell me. Hey.
That's a fun time. I love talking about this kind of stuff. I think people we have got to understand is that, like, what's their agenda? It's like when they talk about passing it, like, what are you really passing it for? You know what you're doing it for, but y'all don't even have good excuses.
Oh, absolutely.
These niggas try to fool me.
You know what they need to do? This is why we have to normalize these conversations. See, these are conversations that my parents would have around the dining room table, and we'd get into it. And my mother said, the problem you all have today is you all talk about nothing. You'll talk about a lot of stupid stuff. We talked about serious issues, and we've got to normalize serious issues at our dining room tables so that we can educate ourselves and educate our children. The community that. No one's more serious about this than our Jewish brothers and sisters. They do that. And they are winning up against a headwind. Because God knows they deal with anti-Semitism. That having been said, come on, black folks, brown people, poor white folks. What? Come on now, CK. Oh, it's just too
10
much.
seconds.
But before we go to the caller, CK, you can go to Attorney Jones because I know he is chomping at the bit. Are you at the Congress already, Attorney Jones? Are you sitting outside?
We can change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world. I am free.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. I want you to call us at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. And, of course, I want you to reach out to us on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please go over there and like and subscribe. And go on over to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Meet me on Twitter at Santita J. Meet me on Twitter. We're talking with, of course, Attorney C.K. Hoffler. You know, every Wednesday, Legal Q&A with C.K. She's assembled quite the panel with us today. Attorney Robert Patillo, Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, brilliant civil rights lawyer. Attorney Keith Lamar, the former president of the National Black Prosecutors Association, brilliant civil rights lawyer, who wants to have these conversations. I said, you don't have to tell me twice. I'm going to have you back on a whole lot because we've got to normalize these conversations. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, and of course, Attorney Daryl Jones, chair of the brilliant civil rights lawyer, keeps so many of our voting rights activists out of prison, out of not jail, out of prison, because you know they want to send us away forever and ever. He's the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, I'm just wondering, do you think Attorney Jones, I'm acting like he's not even here, do you think he's maybe standing outside of Congress waiting to get in today? Maybe.
I think he's standing out. I think he's got one foot in the door. Because, I have to just give him credit and Barbara Arnwine credit. They were there every day before.
Absolutely.
The trial, the McMichael Ryan trial surrounding the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. And they made a difference. Transformative Justice Coalition.
They do all the time.
Applaud them and salute them all of the time.
That's right.
Also, people know them for being in the voting rights space as well.
Right.
So I know we're talking as if Daryl Jones is not online, but he's just so phenomenal.
No, we're just trying to give him a chance to get off. We're trying to let him get off the wall, so he doesn't look like he's another January 6th person, but for freedom. But before you do this, we've got our girl, Chapearl, who's going to tell us about all this food she's still making, y'all. Chapearl.
Yes, Santita, thank you so much for having us today. Yes, at Celebrations by Us, we are actually still taking food orders every day because we're open all the time, as well as also we're gearing up for our actual prom season and wedding season and baby shower, as well as also complete event planning systems that we have at Celebrations by Us. So don't hesitate to give us a call at 708-526-4546. That's 708-526-4546. We look forward to serving you. Thank you, Santita.
Okay, what do you want to say about voting rights, Chapearl? I know she's about to pass out, too. Go on, Chapearl.
I'm sitting here. I'm just waiting for them, just like Daryl Jones is, waiting for them to do this vote. I think it's so important that we actually get all the senators on record. And we're banking on Manchin and Sinema, and I could care less about those two. We have to go with 100 senators strategy and pull those from the right. Is it impossible? It seems very difficult, but when you put people on the line on Front Street, as we used to say, when you put them on Front Street, they usually go ahead with the resolution. But who is going to be key in all of this is Uncle Chucky. Let's see if Uncle Chucky gonna have enough kahunas to go out here and do what he needs to do, which is call the vote. I'm waiting, Santita. I'm on standby.
And I just wanted to spare her the need to call back, CK. So I know we've got Attorney Jones. Now, Attorney Jones, are you in a secure location outside of the Capitol? Just kidding.
I am in a secure location now, Santita. They cannot come and put the flex cuffs on me. I've hidden myself, and it's really an exciting conversation that we're having this morning, a very significant conversation. I want to thank you and certainly my attorney, C.K. Hoffler, for being with us in this fight and staying with us in this fight. As we have this conversation right now, we have students from across the country that are hunger strikers, that have not eaten for the last 7 to 10 days, that are outside the Capitol demanding that this bill be passed. We have faith leaders from across the country that have come to the Capitol steps and have gathered. Yesterday, the hunger strikers and some of the faith leaders were arrested because they were blocking the entrance to the Capitol steps, demanding that this bill be passed. And so one of the things that I have to push on here, Santita, is that it's important right now. Our intelligence tells us that there will be a vote today. That's what we're anticipating. That the vote will happen today. That's what we're anticipating.
But wait a minute, let me ask you this because I want to get this straight, because they have floated the idea of a talking filibuster, that Senator Schumer might do that. What do you think?
That has been floated out there. The one thing that has been clear from what we're hearing is that they will be voting on this today. The vote's coming today. Okay. And so it's important that we have folks call in to that 202-224-3121 to encourage the members of the Senate to support the Freedom to Vote John R. Lewis Act. We talk about sort of looking at some of the moderate Republicans and trying to put pressure on them. Let's not forget Senator Scott, right? Because you got Senator Tim Scott down there in South Carolina. There needs to be pressure put on him. There are folks in South Carolina, the black folks that are in, the African-American folks that are in South Carolina, that are putting pressure on Tim Scott to support this thing. That, he needs to stand up for these voters. So, one of the things that, that we've been pushing very hard on and very hard for has been this legislation. But we've got to be certain, because we know that there were 16 Republican senators that voted for the reauthorization in 2006 that are currently still in the U.S. Senate. That was the Fannie Lou Hamer, Rosa Parks, Coretta Scott King Voting Rights Act Reauthorization Act. So we know that they're there, that we know that they've done it in the past, but we need them to have the courage and the moral fiber and fortitude to stand up and do it again right now, because it's so incredibly important for that to happen. So, it's very, I'm glad that you had Chaparral on, because, while I'm out here, I'm getting hungry and I want her to bring some sweet potato biscuits on down here. And I know CK knows all about sweet potato biscuits down in Georgia. Right? But, I do. I've got to stop somewhere and get some sweet potato biscuits.
Honey, she cooks like your grandmama or great grandmama used to cook. Oh my gosh! Honest to God, she a lot of our food for the Jackson family holidays. Trust me, we get food from Chaparral because it is just that good. Because our mother can really, really, really cook, and Chaparral can burn. Let me go to Noel from here in Chicago. Noel, what's on your mind?
Yes. Good morning, Ms. Jackson. How you doing?
It's wonderful hearing your voice, sweetheart. What's going on?
Okay, Ms. Jackson. If you like trying to catch a fish, you got to put a bait on your hook. I blame all this on the Congressional Black Caucus. There's 58 members. Okay? They can tell Biden, Sinema, and all those other senators, they care more about their pocket. Okay? The businesses. They suspended the rules to raise the debt ceiling. If the Congressional Black Caucus get together and tell Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, we are not going to vote for any raise of the debt ceiling, it's voting rights. Once they do that, I guarantee you, you will have enough senators come to vote. Congressional Black Caucus need to unite and not vote on the next debt ceiling, raise the debt ceiling unless it's attached to voting rights. It's that
Robert Patillo, what are your thoughts?
They have the power. They have the power. They have the power because in the U.S. House, the Democrats are only afford to lose like 5 or 6 members on any debate. So if 58 congressional black members unite, trust me, no legislation is going to get passed. It's that simple. You give me what I want, I give you what you want. That's how it works. I can't keep giving you what you want. Okay? I can't keep giving Pelosi and Biden and Schumer giving them what they want all the time. What do we get in return?
Look, I hear you.
Your interest?
It's called an abusive relationship.
That's how you go about it.
Who does that?
Yeah, it's a give and take. That's how you do this.
Yeah.
You don't wait and say, I'm going to convince him. I'm going to convince Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin care about money and his bankrollers, his high bankrollers. That's what Cinema care about. So if those people come and they want to raise the debt ceiling, okay, we're going to raise it. Put the F4 on the floor as well with the debt ceiling. Let's debate this, and that's why you do that. It's that simple.
Well, hold on, Robert Patillo.
Congressional Black Caucus.
Well, why don't you respond? Let me let Robert Patillo respond to you, Robert, and then everybody else. Robert, what you think?
Well, the first day of political science class in college, they tell you politics is the question of who gets what when, and right now, black folks get nothing, never. Because of the way that we direct our political power. But I think there's something to be said for the idea of just having, of taking that heat because, nobody turns against you faster. This is both in politics and in your personal life than when you stand up for yourself. So maybe it is time for the Congressional Black Caucus to say, well, this line and nothing else. On my show Sunday, we talked about immovable issues. What are going to be the immovable issues for the black community? If you look at the Jewish community, often it's the question of support for laws against anti-Semitism, support for Israel. LGBTQ community, often it's questions of gay marriage and the ability to have the family and the employment that you want, regardless of your orientation or your identification. Maybe voting should be that immovable item for the black community, where we say, "Well, this is just where the line is going to be at, and don't invite me here if you don't want me to talk." And maybe maybe we have to go from simply having a place at the table to saying, well, no, I want to be fed, I want to eat, I want to dine like everybody else. Just because I'm at the table doesn't make me a diner. I have to be served in the way that every other community is. I don't think it's a poor idea at all.
I think, we need to be served and not served up. You need to understand that your freedom, your citizenship, and your vote are tied together. Now, you want a seat at the table. You don't want to be on the menu. Stop taking this. It's an insult. You got to have an insult level. You have to have an insult level. 50 Democrat strategy is an insult. No one does politics that way. Nobody else plays that. You don't play with other people and their vote. You don't play with other people and whatever is precious to them. And for Black Americans, we're the canaries in the mine. The vote is precious for every American, but it comes out on us, CK. It comes out on us. I mean, this is a lot. I mean, Attorney Lamar, what are you seeing? I mean, because you mentioned that all of these states are having these rollbacks on mail-in voting, on souls to the polls on Sunday. I mean, they're limiting, as we speak, state by state, our access to voting.
Yeah, and like I said, it's pathetic. I think that what we have to do, and I agree that you have to have some bipartisanship, you also have to understand that when you do have a majority, you got to take action, because when we had the minority, they took action. And I think that we have to take action to prevent this from happening, because our kids, we deserve better for our kids, right? We deserve to do better for them. Because if we allow voting rights to be taken after so much hard work, people getting hung, people being beaten and abused for years just for us to vote. We've been through this. So to have it just taken away and not do anything about it is bad, and we cannot allow that. So as I look at it now and I look at what we need to do for the future, of course he needs to work on getting some bipartisanship, but you got to be forceful about getting this done, okay? If they don't want to do it, you need to call them out to the table. You let it be known. If there's a person on your side of the party that doesn't want to do it, call them out. Why is it that you don't want to do something? Why is it that you're trying to limit what we've worked so hard for a generation to do and try to take away from us? You know, it's not fair. And I think that as we're educated, and we have to be able to protect our rights and protect the rights of our kids that's coming.
Absolutely. You know what? I just have to interrupt here, CK, because CK, of course, is the chair of the board of Rainbow Push. Dia Roja, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, or Roja. You have an issue with ventilation and COVID in a building in Atlanta, Robert. And she needs to get some resources, studies, data that could help them. And I think she needs to speak to you. Um, Dia, would you send me your information? Just, just an email, and let me get that to, excuse me, let me get that to Robert Patillo. Is that okay, Robert?
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay, because we need to do that because oh boy, these are very, very real issues. But CK Hoffler,
Very real issues.
oh, they're very real issues. I mean, and that's why you need to vote, CK. You gotta
That's
vote.
why you need to vote. That's why we need to have the. We need to. You know, this is the thing. This is the thing. When people start using other explanations about why they can't support a Voting Rights Act, no matter what you call it, it could be called the John Lewis. When people start using other explanations, as African Americans, as people of color, as Black and brown people, as progressive people, as young white voters, all of that need to say, stop. That's not what it is. And put it where it is. It is an attempt to limit the right to vote of Black and brown people. We have to stop allowing people to define it as some type of something else. There was a woman that called that I had on my show yesterday, Santita, and she came up with all these unsupported statistics of fraud. I felt like I was listening to former President Trump with all of these statistics on the fraud and the reason why you have to limit the ballot, all of this because there was this and that. Absolutely no evidence. We have to call people out when they start making up stuff because otherwise nothing will get done. And we have to reshape and recalibrate the issues. And finally, Santita, I need to say, I forgot, Attorney General Griggs is coming on tomorrow.
Okay.
I kept on calling his name. I completely forgot that he was not scheduled to come on today. He was going to come on the show, your show tomorrow morning. So I apologize.
No, honey.
But I was calling his name.
No, Gerald is going to be okay because guess what? We're going to have these same people back on because you know what? They're going to have the vote today. Thank you very much. And I think we need to be real concerned about that because we need to be thinking about next steps. Robert from the South Side. Robert, what's on your mind?
Yes, good morning. I'd just like to say one thing. Why are we not constantly talking about the Supreme Court, who gutted the civil rights bill in the first place? We worked our butts off to move forward, and we're constantly moving backward. Why are we constantly working on this, and why aren't the Democrats working to submit a deal where we don't have to go back through this again? This is really, really, really shameful. Not only do we need to be talking about Manchin and Sinema, we need to be talking about the Roberts Court. Even with respect to abortion, I know we're talking about civil rights,
but all of them,
they're moving us backwards. Yeah. So this bill gets passed, and a few years from now, we end up going through the same freaking thing because of the Supreme Court. Thanks for taking my call. That's all I have to say.
Well, you know, before, and Robert, thank you. Before I toss this back to you, CK, I just wanted to say to Robert, we're not constantly moving back. We're constantly facing pushback because of the moves forward that we are making. We're not in slavery anymore. But, you know, we used to say this in college all the time, a luta continua. What? The struggle, what? Continues. It does not stop. Power concedes nothing without demand. Thank you, Frederick Douglass. It never has. It never will. The price of liberty is your eternal vigilance. That's from our founding fathers. You got to fight. We cannot rest on our laurels, CK. We keep thinking, okay, it was done. It's like, because you're not giving Dr. King credit. You're not giving Andrew Young credit, Joseph Lowery credit, Reverend Sharpton credit, Reverend Jackson, all these people, Fannie Lou Hamer, you're not, the National Council of Negro Women, Dorothy Height, you're not giving them credit. God bless you, you don't mean any harm. But some people do. Attorney Jones, let me tell you this, CK, as you pick this up, Barbara Arnwine, who's probably our foremost voting rights lawyer, really of our generation.
Yep.
She was the former executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, which was created by President Kennedy to protect our civil rights. If she could talk about voting rights every day on a talk show, she would do that. Honest to God. You're like, okay, Attorney Armand, what do you want to talk about? Good, you know I want to talk about voting rights. Like, okay, but the election was yesterday. I think we're cool now. No. You know, CK, she does that all the time. Some people do this. Attorney Jones, I'm half kidding. Is he outside of the U.S. Congress? Because he would be there.
And let me just say this, Santita. Barbara Arnwine, you're absolutely right. She is the mother of the election protection movement.
Mm-hmm.
Election protection emanated when she started the Lawyers Committee on Civil Rights when she was there, when she was the leader there. And she is the foremost internationally voting rights, recognized as a voting rights expert. And she fights that fight every day. And Santita, you're so right. In college, we used to say, "A luta continua." The struggle continues. But the last part of it that they said when they were fighting the Portuguese colonial powers was "Victoria es certa."
Hey.
Victory is certain.
It's certain.
So we got to go for the victory being certain. But we're not going to have the victory being certain unless we keep on fighting. And this is a modern day, we looked at we don't have legal lynching, but Ahmaud Arbery's murder was a modern day lynching. So we understand that there's a solution. But I think that we are taking steps back. But I do appreciate the fierce passion of the caller when he talks about the Supreme Court. We need to be looking at the Supreme Court, which is something that I preach all the time. And the reason for that is because just like in the Shelby County versus Holder case, which is the reason why we're in this precarious position with voting rights, because that case, that opinion by the U.S. Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act. It gutted. All of the protections that we had at that point were stripped. Preclearances, and that's why states are just doing whatever they want to do.
Because they can now. They've been sanctioned by the Supreme Court.
Shelby County. We have to keep our eye on the Supreme Court constantly, but guess what? This is another opportunity. If President Biden needs to expand the Supreme Court, expand the Supreme Court. We need to do whatever it takes to get this done on all levels, because it's going to...
I agree with 100% with that.
Attorney Lamar, I got a minute for you and then a minute for Attorney Jones. Attorney Lamar?
Yeah, I agree 100% with CK on that, and I think that we have to think about also back when President Obama was president, and he tried to put in some people for the Supreme Court, and they blocked him. I know y'all remember that. They blocked him, right? And how Donald Trump, at the same time, with less time left to be president, they had to put more people in the Supreme Court. That was crap. That was a lot of crap. So we definitely need to have a watchful eye on that. And the reason I use the word crap, because there's no other way to describe it.
Thank you very much, because you want to keep me on the radio.
No problem.
or we say bullshiggity. Okay, maybe crap is better.
Because we're going to slip up one day.
I said nonsense.
We're going to slip up because we're going to get mad. Attorney Jones, I've got about 45 seconds for you and then 45 seconds for Robert. Attorney Jones, what should we be doing today?
Thanks so much, Santita. Today, everyone, if you're not in the D.C. area and outside the Capitol with us, you need to call that 202-224-3121 and tell the Senate to pass the Freedom to Vote John R. Lewis Act. Folks, it's time to get off of the sidewalk and into the streets. We've got to demand that our rights be preserved, that they be protected. That's what this is all about. That's why I get so excited when I hear the C.K. Hofflers and the Robert Patillos and the Gerald Griggs and the Keith Lamars, everyone talking about voting rights. That's what this is about. Get into the streets, everyone. Get involved. Get active. Don't be a spectator, be a participant in protecting these rights. That's what needs to happen right now, Santita.
Get that seat at the table. Don't be something to be eaten on the menu. 30 seconds for you, Attorney Robert Patillo.
I
I think everybody has to stay informed, stay connected. Put pressure on both sides of the aisle. Look, the election isn't over. After they count the votes and have the little parade, the election continues. And these people are up for re-election coming up this fall, and we need to have our voices heard that if you're not supporting us right now, don't plan on us sending you back anytime soon.
And I thank you. Don't do that. Oh no, we got to keep the Democrat. You're not voting as a Democrat. As what I need a Democrat to vote like. You're not doing what I need you to do. This is quid pro quo. That's politics. You do for me, I do for you. Boom. That's it. Remember, the black story is the American story. When we were freed from slavery, that was an amendment to the Constitution. We were freed. Then the next amendment, the 14th, gave us citizenship because we weren't citizens yet, according to everybody, although we've been here for hundreds of years. Then it's a vote. Your citizenship, your freedom, and your vote are braided together. This is serious business. This is a serious matter, as we used to say, ladies of Delta Sigma Theta, when I was online. This is a serious matter. It's a serious matter. 202-224-3121. Call everybody, Republican and Democrat, and tell them what you need. Whether you wanted them or not, tell them what you need. And make it happen, everybody. We're going to talk about this tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. Love you, everybody. God bless you. Legal Q&A with CK every Wednesday on the Santita Jackson Show. Thank you guys for a great show. Love you all. See you tomorrow. Oh, I love it. CK?
Yes?
Is there anything you'd like to say? And Attorney Lamar and Attorney Jones and Attorney Patillo before we get off the air. I don't know if Dr. Knighton is still there. She was so fired up today.
No, it's a great talk. It's a great talk. I'm glad that we're talking about it. I think that I hope that more people are listening, understanding that rights are trying to be taken in front of your nose and they're trying to distract you with a lot of other things in the world. But understand that voting is pivotal in this country. It's pivotal in any country, but it's very pivotal for us. So I'm glad we're talking about it.
Absolutely. I wish I've looked for this Dia Roja. I'm waiting for her to send me something because she's having some issues and she needs to speak with our Atlanta office. And I need you to send me a number so I can put that out there, Robert, because she's having air ventilation issues, which we should not be having in a pandemic with an airborne virus. Oh my gosh, that sounds awful.
People are working under terrible circumstances.
Yeah, well, you're sitting in the hospital with your nurse, and this is not their fault. Your doctor, this is not their fault. They're breathing over you while they're asymptomatic shedders of COVID. I thought we were supposed to be stopping this thing. What are y'all doing? Oh, honey, I'm sorry. I just have to ask questions because this is crazy. We've got more vaccines than ever, and we've got more spread than ever. Huh? Come on, something's not right. And we need to make it right. We need to ask the question so we can get it right, so we can stop this and come out of this. And remember, people are still getting pneumonia. They're still getting cancer. They still have lupus. People have all kinds of things. And now, in fact, there are more people in the hospitals with COVID than who are in there because of COVID in more and more states. People still have issues. Ugh. It's too much. CK, you close us out, girl.
Yes, ma'am. Well, what I like to say is, Santita, we got to keep on fighting. I like a lucha continua, victoria y cierta, because we have to keep fighting on all levels. Fight where you can. Don't say, well, I can't go to Washington. Fight where you can. You've got a voice. You can pick up the phone and call your senator. Call the U.S. senator. It doesn't have to be your senator. And say you want to pass it. Support organizations like Rainbow Push, Transformative Justice Coalition, other organizations that are there fighting in the streets every single day.
Every day.
Register to vote. Register to vote and vote out people who are not pushing forward an agenda that makes sense. It doesn't make sense not to support voting rights. We know it. We've always known it. So we don't need to vote for someone who doesn't support that, and support those who are in favor of that. And, there was a comment about the Congressional Black Caucus. I got to say something about my senator, Raphael Warnock. He said it.
Yeah, he did.
Said look, when we want to do something, we do it. We need to do it. So don't be talking about my Senator Raphael Warnock. So anyway, I just had to say that.
Well, no one was
I felt
talking
like
about Reverend Raphael. We
I know,
love.
but we have there are a lot of extraordinary Congressional Black Caucus members, and quite frankly, but for them, you would have had no George Floyd, the introduction of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. You would not have had Cory Booker negotiating on the Senate side. Of course, we do have that other person, Tim Shotwell, but we have to say there are extraordinary members that are responsible for what we have on the Hill. So I want to make sure that we recognize that. There's nothing wrong with saying we got to go gangster. I didn't mean literally gangster. I mean
political gangster. I do mean that.
Political gangster.
Oh yeah, no.
Which is that right? But that I just wanted to explain what I meant by we have to go gangster. Political gangster, which is if we can't get this, then we're not going to get any of this other stuff either.
That's right.
That's a gangster move, in my impression, in a very positive way. So I just wanted to add that footnote, Santita, and thank you for this discussion. Let's continue this discussion.
Well, we're going to have it tomorrow.
Breathe voting rights.
No, we're going to have it tomorrow because they're going to have the vote today. Daryl, are you still there, or have you gone into the U.S. House of the Congress? Well, I'll reach back out. You know he is gone. Attorney Lamar?
Yes, I'm here.
Can you join us tomorrow?
Yeah, I think that. Oh yeah, definitely. Let's make it happen.
Oh yeah, no. Come on, we're gonna have. We're gonna do. I think we have to have a reaction to what happens today, and CK, lead us on next steps. Next steps. We need to get. I mean, Robert Patillo, are you still there? Well, I'll reach back out. But we need next steps. Because I don't think we should say, we won, we lost, and this is it. Because no matter what happens, this is just, we've only just begun.
The fight continues. It never stops.
That's right. That's right. It does not stop. It does not stop. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. But you were saying, Attorney Lamar?
I was just saying that, at the end of the day, I agree with what CK was saying. We do have to have, first of all, I want to say that people take control of your lives, okay? We do have elected officials, but you have to be active yourself. Don't put all the pressure on them. You need to do it as well. We all need to go out there and have a voice, because we do have voices. So whether you have a title or not, you are a person, you are a citizen of America, and you want something done, you need to go out here and make it happen.
That's right. If you look behind Dr. King at many, if not most of the marches he had, they were very small. He didn't have a whole lot of people with him. No. These were. If you go to Selma looks like it did in 1965. It's a small little town with buildings that are old and worn. And to think that in this small little town, on that little Edmund Pettus Bridge, they completely changed world history. When they honored Reverend Jackson for his 70th birthday at the British Parliament, this is the first time they had honored a non-British citizen ever. First time. We had people who were from the so-called right and the so-called left and everybody in between who were serving in Parliament. And they were saying, particularly the people of color. And one gentleman, he was so lovely, and we're still in touch to this day. He said, I am conservative. But I have to tell you, when I saw Reverend Jackson, it changed my life. And it made me believe that I could do anything. He said, so I had to be here today. I had to say thank you. Because seeing him, while I was a child here in England, in the UK, seeing him run made me change my whole outlook about who I am. The things that we are doing in America are impacting the whole world, everybody. We're changing the world. Changing the world. Fannie Lou Hamer was a sharecropper. She changed the world. She changed the world. And you don't have to be perfect. I've been reading these stories. I saw something on LinkedIn that really struck me because people don't really focus in on this. Dr. King, many people speculate about he was a depressive. He tried to kill himself twice before he was 13. The second time, he was so despondent about the death of his grandmother, he jumped off of the second floor of his home. And he struggled with depression all of his life. Some people might even call that bipolar disorder today. And he had his challenges as a human being. But do you know what one of the comments to this story, and I thank this Dr. Belinda Kendall for writing about this. You know, God doesn't need perfect people. God needs people to do God's perfect work. Danny Bell Hall used to sing a song, God uses ordinary people, just ordinary people. Little becomes much when you place it in the master's hand. There is nothing that you can do that is too small, that is too insignificant. If you make someone a sandwich who's trying to vote, you have done something good. Call 202-224-3121. The ancestors need you, all of them. They couldn't do this. They didn't have the voice that we have now. Don't complain about the things that people are trying to take away. Be grateful for the things that were won for you. Maybe the problem is it was given to you, and you don't know what it took to get the rights that we have. You know, when Reverend ran for president almost 40 years ago, you had to get registered 3 times, CK, Attorney Lamar. Yep. You had to register in the county. You had to register in your local seat, the county seat, and come back and confirm that you had registered in the county seat. This is the crazy stuff that we saw in the Democratic primary in 1983. You think Barack Obama just walked into this? No. The rules were changed. Then you had a conflict in 1984. So America got a chance to see a black family every single week. Chance the view of black people, and you can say what you will about Dr. Bill Cosby. I love him forever. That whole cast, everything he did was to change the temperature on black people, and he did it. A lot of stuff had to happen in order for us to have gotten that moment. Now we have to go further, and you need to save your vote. Remember, your freedom, your citizenship, and your vote are braided together. 3 poles. Once we got free, then we had to become citizens, and then we had to get the vote. Do I have that? Am I reading that correctly, Attorney Hoffler, Attorney Lamar?
We got it right.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. I hope people heard you.
As they say in Buffalo, you ain't never lied.
Let's go. Let's say it here, too. But you know what? We have to say that all the time. You ain't never lied. you know, we talk when we're off mic.
Oh, that's right. We are on mic. Okay.
No, it's okay. But no, I'm like, you know how we talk. You know, and people love that. They love that. One day you'll have to do Rappers Delight for everyone. Yeah. Attorney Lamar, I'm still trying to get over that. My mouth fell to the floor. I was like, she's doing what? What? Oh, honey, you have not lived until you see Miss St. John's come on out here with this dropping this mic. My poor father, she did it for his birthday party just a few months ago. He was like, I've seen this before, but I just can't believe I'm seeing this. And my mother loved it. She was like, oh, CK, so much fun. I love it. Now, what is that hip hop? What? I said, what we used to do on the bus coming home from school, because that was the contest. How much of the song did you know?
No. Yep.
Oh, boy. I love you all. But you know what, Attorney Lamar, we're going to have you tomorrow. CK, we got to have you. Because I think that whatever it is, we've got to react to. If it's an upvote, great, but we can't stop there. If it's a downvote, we can't stop there. You said that, Attorney Lamar. We can't. We have to have some strategies in place. I'm sorry, sir.
It can't be defeated. I want people to understand that. Don't give in to defeat. Okay, you're never defeated. You got to go back and change the way we approach it, right? But never give up. Now, when you give up, everything that we've worked for over the last 100 years, the last 300 years is gone. You're never going to give up.
That's right. You have to keep fighting. You have to. Now I understand. My father, we have to help him out of bed now, because that Parkinson's has advanced. But guess what? His mind is still here. His spirit's still here. He's fighting, and you got to help. He's like, look, we got work to do. We've got work to do, and I'm gonna help him until he gets out of here. Now, if he's gonna fight,
and if he's willing to fight, then we all should fight.
And you need to pay attention to the people who've been fighting for you because they see something. Dr. King was so weary, April 3rd, 1968. He said, look, I might not get there with you, but I've seen the promised land. I've seen it. But you're going to have to keep on going. You're going to have to keep on pressing. And that's the way it works. Every generation has got a cross. Must Jesus bear the cross alone and all the world go free? No, 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 no. There's a cross for everyone. One for you and one for me. Okay? Yeah, you got some work to do too.
Amen.
Come on now. You know, all the songs that I used to hear, Attorney Lamar and Attorney Hoffler, boy, they make sense to me now. I'm like, wow.
That's how it works, right? You know, I get the song now.
Oh, did you hear what you just said? Now I understand the blues. I'm like, oh man. Now I understand that 20-minute solo that Miles Davis did. I get it. Even though I felt my head fell on the table. I was so tired. But, you know, it's like, no, I get it. No, I'm like, oh wow, I get it. I get it. I really do get it. And I think that we need to get it. We need to get it. You know, that's the danger of having things given to you. That's the danger of you when you don't work for things, you don't know how hard it was to get them. Our freedom was not given to us. We had to fight for it. That's why I love Black Americans. Because we had to fight the white man's revolution and our own revolution. We will fight. We're going to do that. So come on, everybody. And this is a fight for every American, whatever your color, whatever your persuasion. Because if I'm not free, you're not free either. So.
Oh, yeah. Don't be fooled by the illusion.
How about that? So I love you. Attorney Lamar will have you on in the morning. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, we'll have you back on. Well, obviously, we got a lot to talk about tomorrow. We who believe in freedom cannot rest.
Absolutely. All right. Much love.
Love y'all, everybody. Much love. You know we keep it real on the Santita Jackson Show. Come on. You know, y'all know we keep it real. Keep it real. Keep it real. Keep it real. All right. Love you, everybody. See you tomorrow morning.